Chapter 21 The Howl. It wasn't long before Ross found more signs of trouble. Furry faces poking out from the bushes, musky smells lingering in the fields, silhouettes trotting through the moonlight. And then one night she heard it, the long menacing howl of a wolf. Chapter 22 The Wolves. The attack happened at dusk. Seven beastly shapes bound over the fence and into the pasture. Old Annabelle had wandered off from the herd, and now she made an easy target. The herbing machine saw the wolves coming and rode in their direction, but the hunters were clever. They slipped up, darted past the clunky machine, and surrounded their target. The wolf pack was led by a large male. His name was Shadow, and it was easy to see why. He was quick and quiet and covered in dark fur, except for a long pale scar that streaked across his body like a comet. Shadow locked eyes with the cow, distracting her with his fierce gaze, and when his pack was in position, he said, "Attack!" The wolves long snapping their jaws at the cow's skinny legs. Annabelle kicked and hollered, "Stay away from me, you brutes!" She was a big animal, but the wolves knew what to do. They kept beating her, kept tonguing her, kept wearing her down. The herd watched from after. They cried out to their friend. They wanted help, but they were too frightened to move. Well, reader, you can guess who came to rescue. Footsteps thundered across the pasture, and Roz leaped into the fight. Had she swung her fist or kicked her feet, the wolf pack might have fled. But the robot wasn't programmed to be violent, and all she could do was awkwardly defend the cow. Roz felt teeth champing her arm. She felt claws slashing her chest. Her pain sensors flared and she howled, "Leave us alone!" The robot's booming voice startled the wolves, and in that instant she pried one of them away. Then Annabelle landed a hard kick, and another wolf tumbled backward into the grass. More help was coming. The other cows had finally found their courage, and the angry herd was on the march. The wolves had missed their chance. Shadow gave a frustrated grunt, and the pack retraced the dash through the pasture, leaped over the fence, and disappeared into the tree. The robot activated her headlights and shafted of light beaming off from her eyes, while the herd crowded around. Rod carefully examined Annabelle's injuries. "I need to clean and dress these bite wounds," said the robot, "but you will be okay." "Of course I'll be okay," the cow panted. "I'm old, but I'm feisty. Those wolves can't scare me." Annabelle talked tough, but there was no mistaking the fear in her eyes. All the cows were afraid. They knew that if the wolves attacked again, their next victim might not be so fortunate. Chapter 22 The Rifle. The wolves returned the very next morning, shortly after dawn. They leaped from the trees and started chasing a poor calf through the pasture. Roz managed to drive them off, but that night they returned again. The herd came stampeding into the barn as the wolves left and trotting back to the fields. The cows were in shock. They refused to leave the barn. If this continued, the herd would produce less milk, the farm would lose money, and Mr. Sharif would send Roz back to the factory. Something had to be done. Knock, knock, knock. The dog barked, and the children opened the door. "How do you get all those scraps?" said Jaya. "Is everything okay?" said Jed. "I must speak with your father," said Roz. Mr. Sharif came to the door, and Roz explained the problem. At the first mention of wolves, he sent his children to their rooms, but the dogs stayed. Oscar had no idea what the man and the robot were discussing, and his tail happily wagged as he stood beside them. However, his tail stopped wagging when Mr. Sharif handed Roz a rifle. The dog had seen the rifle in action, and it frightened him to his core. He scurried into the bushes and hid there, whimpering while the conversation went on. "What do you mean you can fire a rifle?" the man yelled. "Rod, you're a farmer now, and sometimes farmers had to kill animals." It was the first time Mr. Sharif had ever yelled at Rod. She waited patiently as words and spit flew from his mouth. "Mr. My farm and my family are in danger. Rod, I order you to kill those wolves." "I cannot follow that order because I am not programmed to be violent." Mr. Sharif let out a heavy sigh. He knew Roz was right, but when he reached for the weapon, she wouldn't let go. The man stared at the robot stared at the dog stared at the rifle. Oscar was still whimpering and hiding in the bushes. Just the sight of the rifle had sent him into a panic. It was hard to believe that such a fearful animal was relating to wolves. But dogs are related to wolves, thought the robot, and her computer brain began buzzing with activity. She thought of dogs and wolves and rifles. She thought of Shadow, the wolf leader, and the long straight scar on his side. And then she had an idea. "Although I cannot fire the rifle," said Roz, "I believe it can help me solve the wolf problem." Mr. Sharif frowned. He didn't know what the robot was getting at, but he was happy to let her handle the wolves by herself. "Fine, try your way," he said. "Just don't lose any cows, or else we might have to lose a robot too." Or else we might have to lose a robot too. Chapter 24. The Bluff. The cows peered out from the barn at Roz. The robot was hiding the rifle. She carried to the far side of the pasture and placed it by her feet. Then she began coating herself with mud and grass and probably a little cow dung. When every inch of her body was concealed, she nestled down into the ground and became part of the landscape, an ordinary clump of grass. The cows were tongued. "What's Roz doing? Is she all right? Where did she go?" Roz had learned to camouflage herself back on the island, and now she was using that trick once again. She sat motionless for hours, waiting for the wolves to appear. Day-night failed. The stars came out, the moon climbed into the sky, but the wolves didn't show, so Roz tried something new. The robot went an excellent mimic, and she began crying out in the sad voice of a wounded calf. "Please help me," she cried. "I have hurt my leg, and I cannot move." Crickets chirped. "Please help me." An owl hooted. "I cannot move." The calf's voice continued crying out. Finally, as the moon dipped behind the trees, 7 wolves slunk into the pasture. Shadow led the way, silently skulking through the night, covering dark fur, and he was practically invisible. Only his long pale scar gave him away. Noses sniffed, eyes searched, ears listened. Then a clump of grass began rusting. "There," whispered Shadow. "The calf is hiding in that tall grass." "Something feels wrong to me, Shadow," said a female wolf. "This is too easy." "I make the decision, Barb," snapped the wolf leader. "Slash, lurk, fang, circle around and wait for my signal." The 3 wolves dashed off. When they were in position. Shadow gave the signal, and his pack closed in all the wound calf. With each step, the grass rustled more and more until the ground seemed to be moving. And then the ground really was moving. Grass and dirt crumbled aside, and there was the robot, standing tall, pointing the rifle at the wolf leader. The pack froze. "Hello, Shadow," growled the robot. "My name is Roz. I see from your scar that you are familiar with rifles. You have been shot at before. You know what will happen if I pull this trigger." "Reader, you and I are well aware that our robot was not programmed to be violent. Roz couldn't have pulled that trigger if she wanted to, but she didn't want to. She was bluffing, of course. Shadow didn't know any of this. As far as the wolf knew, he was defeated, and so he did what wolves do when they're defeated. He lay down and he called before the robot. For the first time anyone could recall, the wolf leader looked weak. "I do not want to hurt any wolves," Roz continued, "but if you return to this farm, I will have no choice. Now, please leave and never come back." Shadow scrambled away with his tail between his legs. Barb was close behind him, followed by the other wolves, and soon the entire pack had disappeared into the night. Chapter 25. The summer. Spring melted into summer, and the wolves were now here to be seen. Purpose Roz had scared off the pack for good, or perhaps the heat was keeping them away. You see, it was the hottest time of year on the farm. The sun was scorching, the fields were backing, the pond was drying up, and fodders were flopping all throughout the dairy. During dry spells, the farm's powerful sprayers were activated. Water shot out in long misty arcs, and the land turned deeper shades of green. When the hayfields were lush and ready to be harvested, Roz fired up the mower and the baler, and the giant machine rolled out the shed and down the long driveway. Shortly afterward, they rolled back in, leaving bales of hay stranded across the trembling fields. The cow and the humans spent hot days indoors. Now, only when the sun set and the air began to cool would they venture outside. The herb strolled out to gaze under stars. The children ran out to chase fireflies, and sometimes even Mr. Sharif stepped out to stretch his stiff legs. Trees switched in the evening breeze. Heat lightning flickered on the horizon. Cicadas sang their summer songs. When Roz wasn't farming, she was searching for a way to escape. Everything hung on the children. The robot needed their help, but she just couldn't bring herself to tell them the truth. It was still too risky. Mr. Sharif asked the student not to distract Roz from her work, but they did it anyway. They'd sneak out of the house and order the robot to play with them. Together they told stories, rode bicycles, lay in the grass watching fluffy clouds drift by. Summer was tornado season of occasion. Thick clouds would start funneling downward, reaching for the ground. So far, the funny clouds had all receded back into the sky before doing any damage, but it was only a matter of time before a tornado torched down.